Hello everyone, this is Dr. Losey from Indiana University Southeast School of Education. Welcome to an online whiteboard presentation of the concept strategy of cooperative learning. This presentation will be a review of our textbook written by Anita Woolfolk, and it begins on page 372 and continues to page 382 in the textbook. All right. This section in the textbook is concerned with several of the learning sciences that excellent teachers, master teachers are expected to know, understand, and be able to use, to have the skills to use them. And not that you need to have all of them on your first day of teaching, but getting a good start is a good thing to do. So we're going to take a look at the one strategy, the one scientific learning strategy of cooperative learning. And first we'll take a look at some terms here, and these are presented in the textbook. So terms for cooperative learning is that it's collaboration. There can't be cooperative learning without collaboration. It's to learn and work with others and to respect differences. It's a far cry from the just go do some group work and they're pretty much left on their own and fend for themselves. In cooperative learning, there's a true collaboration between students, learning to respect the differences that each of them have and learning to work together. The second term, as I just mentioned, is that group work is students working together, maybe at the same table, maybe in the same area, or even online together, but they may or may not cooperate. You don't know because it hasn't been set up to increase the opportunity for cooperation. So group work is a strategy that many teachers talk about, but cooperative learning has to have that component of collaboration. And the third term for cooperative learning is, here it comes, purple and green. Working with others. Working with others, collaborating, but cooperative learning is working with others. And here's what the students need to know. The students need to know what the goal of their learning is, what they're to know, understand, and be able to do, and they work to get together to attain this shared goal. Cooperative learning is one way to collaborate. So collaboration can take in a lot of teaching components and teaching strategies. Cooperative learning is one way to collaborate. It is far more than simply doing group work. Cooperative learning was promoted back decades ago by John Dewey and then by Kurt Lewin, and it's one of the accepted strategies for teachers to use today here in 2015. So I'm going to be using just CL for cooperative learning on the whiteboard from now on. Ta-da! Here come some words and some components of cooperative learning. You cannot have cooperative learning without most or all of these components. Elaboration. Students are asked to elaborate on simple answers, to give more information, to give more detail, to go into deeper thinking. Another component of cooperative learning is interpretation. Taking some facts, taking a situation and interpreting that situation in the specifics of the assignment. Here comes another one. Explanation. To be able to take the facts, what was given, what was seen, what was heard, what was read, and explain that to another person or to another group of people or to everyone in your group or later on to the entire class. So certainly explanation is important. Argumentation. Cooperative learning sometimes, gets emotional in a good way in that students become passionate about the viewpoint, the explanation, the interpretation, and the way they're elaborating the assignment, and it becomes argumentative in a productive way. These four, elaboration, interpretation, explanation, and argumentation, are integral to the activity of the group and where learning is supported by other individuals. So are integral to activity of the group and where learning is supported by other individuals, and that's from page 273 of our textbook. So these four components are important. Elaboration, tell me more, explain more. Interpretation, what does that mean? How do you see that? Explanation, this is why. Argumentation, this is what I believe. Okay, so let's go on to the next screen. And this is absolutely true. Cooperative learning requires careful planning by the teacher as a learning strategy. It's not just something that you say, well, okay, go to cooperative learning. It takes some prior work by the teacher, by the master teacher. So let's talk first of all, what can go wrong in cooperative learning if the careful planning is not there. And these are just natural errors that students can make. Number one, the students can see that getting done quickly, or even getting done first as the first group to finish, is far more important, and it ranks over any learning that could take place. They see it as a competitive deal about racing forward, and that really can cause the cooperative learning to go wrong. Speed over learning. Here's number two. Students support misunderstanding. Now, in cooperative learning, if they're given a task and there is a student who is charismatic or seen as skilled, and that student says, well, here's the way it is, and here's my elaboration, and here's my explanation, and if it's wrong, students in the group could easily support that misunderstanding without being that argumentative or the tell person or tell me more person. So you got to be careful that they're not in that group and just simply supporting the misunderstanding of one member or two members over the others. Number three, what can go wrong? Socialization over learning. We're in a middle school look now, and middle school students love to work in groups, love to work with their peers, trying to find out who I am, how I fit in. The socialization will be important. That can't become more important than the learning targets, where the cooperative learning will not be successful. Number four, students depend on experts or the expert student. Kind of goes along with number two, when the expert student, if the expert student's wrong, and a lot of people are going to go along with that, but it could even be that the expert student is correct, but the rest of the students in the group are too dependent on that student, just as they can become dependent upon the teacher as the provider of information, rather than searching out and finding the information on their own. So let's see about number five. What can go wrong? Status differences can increase. They can seem to go the void between the different statuses of students even to be bigger. So it's important to talk, and we're going to see in a minute, about teaching social skills and ways to get along and ways to have everyone contribute in cooperative learning. We can't let status defeat the learning that is to take place. So five things that can go wrong. And you can plan and reduce those, and then as you monitor the groups, take an active voice in stopping those from happening, or at least minimizing them to the greatest extent. Okay. So the next page makes sense to me. If we talked about what can go wrong, what can go right with cooperative learning, and I would say the first thing, and we mentioned this in an earlier slide, expert teachers begin with a goal for the cooperative learning activity. Goal for the cooperative learning activity. What are students to accomplish? And we've tried to keep the accomplishment of learning, the accomplishment of education in that three terms of what are students to know, what are students to understand, and what are they should be able to do. What operations can they complete? What skills should they have? So it's knowing, understanding, and doing. That has to be clearly laid out. It has to be clearly explained to the students by the teacher. How much structure the students need for success? How much monitoring? How often will you go from group to group? How will you get from group to group? Will a representative of the group come to you? Will you stop the entire class because one group has a question that you think is valuable for everyone? You're going to stop and explain that? So how much structure do the students need? That's going to be a decision that a professional teacher makes. Okay, let's take a look at the next one. I think we're on slide 8. Our textbook, the educational psychology textbook, explains 2 structures of cooperative learning in a little more depth than the others. And the first cooperative learning structure that's explained in our text is student, team, achievement. Let's see, I better push the play sign so I can get the D. Student, teams, achievement, divisions. Student, teams, achievement, divisions. And this was created by Slavin several years ago as a way to make sure that all students were involved and to create a little competition between groups, but that's not the main focus of Slavin's STAD structure, S-T-A-D structure, but it figures into it a little bit, and it's a way to connect everyone's in the group to the learning that takes place. So let's take a look here. To do this, the team is 4 students, all right? And heterogeneous would be useful, but you're going to see here in just a second, even any way that the group is divided, everyone's learning affects the group. So you're going to have the teams of 4 students. You have to do a pretest, or you have to have prior learning assessment where you know what each of those 4 students has been able to demonstrate as far as an assessment of learning. They've been able to demonstrate what they know, what they understand, and what they can do. And you have that recorded. You have that baseline. Then you use cooperative learning, and the amount of improvement of each of the 4 students is graphed or put together. You can say this many points improvement for student 1, this much improvement for student 2, and so on. And you have the total amount of improvement in the group. And what you're looking for is significant improvement of the group. If one person improved and 3 didn't, that's not going to fare well for the overall group score. Now, can you tie this grade of improvement for the group to every member of the group? I believe you can. You'd have to check with your particular schools where you're teaching. The reason I believe you can goes back to the American Chamber of Commerce and the American Manufacturers Association tell educators that one of the most important things they want students to be able to do is problem solve in a group. That graduates from P-12 schools and then from universities should be able to problem solve in a group. Well, in that workplace, it's the group score that everyone gets. You can be a bright shining light in the group, but if the group can't problem solve, the overall score, lower score, is what everyone's going to get in the real world. So I use this, and when I do, I explain it to the students of why we're doing that to simulate the real world. And when you're in P-12, it probably has to be clearly explained to parents. I don't use it all the time, but I have used it. STAD. Okay, we'll take a look at another cooperative learning structure here. And I believe it's a jigsaw. Let's see. Conceptual with problem solving. Okay. Now, conceptual with problem solving, it involves higher order thinking. And this is where students can really help each other as partners in the cooperative learning to improve their higher order thinking skills. You've explained that as a teacher, but hearing another student think through the problem is the way to go. And in this conceptual with problem solving, of course, there is a problem to be solved. And the more that you can make that a real world problem, a simulated real world problem, something that they're facing in their lives now as students, or something that they will face as older students or as adults, it just makes it more authentic. A third, and this is where I thought jigsaw was, but it must be third. A third, we're not the jigsaw. I like jigsaw, so I guess I'm just trying to push forward. A third cooperative learning structure is social skills and communication. We have an assignment about character education that you've already completed, and we're going to be looking at that again in weeks to come. Social skills and how to communicate effectively is an important concept for every teacher to teach. The math teacher, the science teacher, the social studies teacher, the English teacher. Every teacher in the middle school and the high school and in elementary, but we're focusing on middle school and high school here, has to be involved in continually teaching social skills, communication, and character. Cooperative learning is a great way to do that. So here it comes. And here's a word that's very important today. Diversity. Cooperative learning to improve social